Everyone, I don't know if I'm live or if I'm not. You'll have to bear with me. I don't know if that I've got new software, everybody. Let me just check if we're on Facebook. I can't see it yet. Okay, let me try it this way. Hello, everybody. If you're here, if you can see me, let me know. Where do I go to see? Okay. Yes, I can see us on Facebook. Fabulous. Okay, great. So as you can see, everybody, we've got new software. There's a lovely little banner at the bottom that says my name. So, oh, hello, comments. Beautiful. People are here. Wonderful. Hi, David. Hi, Joe. Hi, Isham. Beautiful. Lovely to have you here. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me close that down on my phone. So welcome to our live this evening. We've got some new software. So hopefully we're live on Facebook and YouTube. So I hope it's working. So far the comments are, so this is how we'll be going live from now on. So my guest tonight is the wonderful Jen from the Raw Fed Feline. So tonight we are talking about how to care for carnivores. So our cats, obligate carnivores, how can we support them with diet and nutrition? And Jen is on Facebook and Instagram. So if you don't follow her already, be sure to head over there and have a look. And let me just give you a little bit about her. So she's a passionate advocate for feeding cats biologically species appropriate food. She's been a raw feeder for the past 7 years and has earned 2 certificates in feline nutrition, one from the Academy of Natural Health Sciences Training Center and the other from Southern Illinois University. She's also an active admin team member for the Feline Nutrition Feed Cats Like Cats Facebook group, which is a huge group. And if you're not already part of it, I'd highly recommend you join. It's an educational group dedicated to helping people learn what it means to feed cats a species-appropriate, moisture-rich diet. So Jen is going to talk to us tonight about how she got into raw feeding, how she was inspired to do raw feeding, and actually share a bit with us about what we can consider. So without further ado, let me make sure I click the right button and bring my beautiful guest on screen.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay! I'm here. Hello.
So we've gone live. I've got you on screen. We're absolutely smashing it.
Yay! It's always tricky
Hi,
with new
Jen.
software.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. This is
Brilliant.
great.
We're really, really pleased to have you. So one thing that wasn't in the bio that we were saying before we went live is that you are cat mum to Hazel, and
Yes.
she was the reason. Well, I won't tell the story, but tell everybody how you got into raw feeding. You've been doing it for 7 years. Tell us how you got started with it.
Sure. Yeah. Because I think, like most people, prior to 7 years ago, I was feeding dry food like so many people, putting dry food in a bowl. And I'd been doing that. Gosh, I've had cats since I was like 5 or 6 years old. And that was sort of how we just learned how you fed cats. But after our family dog had passed, my daughters wanted kittens. And so we went to a rescue group and we adopted these kittens. And as we were leaving, they handed me a piece of paper with this list of canned foods and said, you need to feed wet food diet to a cat. And I was like, I've never heard, right. I just thought that was an extra treat sort of thing, not how you fed them. And
Wow.
so it really opened up this whole curiosity about, okay, I thought I knew how to feed cats, but clearly there's more going on. And as I started researching and reading everything I could get a hold of, joining Facebook groups, it started to open up my eyes to, I have not been feeding cats appropriately. And so I spent that first year of the kittens' lives getting used to feeding canned and then freeze-dried raw and other raws. And then Hazel came into my life. And so that was 7 years ago. And so she was the first cat that I started right as a kitten. She was 10 weeks old on raw. And sort of never looked back. And it's just been a night and day difference to see the 3 cats I live with, their energy, their health, their vitality, their coat, feeding this kind of diet. If I compare it to the cats of my youth that were feeding dry food, it's really I wish I would have known then what I know now, but we can only move forward with what we know. But that was it was really that rescue group handing me that piece of paper that sort of sparked a whole curiosity about. I thought I knew how to feed cats, but I really didn't.
That, do you know what? I love that, the fact that it's something so almost like innocent and could have just been a flippant, oh, here you go, and you could have just thought, yeah, that's fine, I know what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it didn't have to spark that interest in you. That the fact that it inspired you, I think, just goes to show it was meant to be, that you were meant to go on this path to investigate this more.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many people are here, like, drop a comment and let us know if you fed dry food, because, I did the same when I got pickle from the rescue center. That's what I thought you fed them on. And like you said, like the wet was like occasional, you just had the bowl of dry food down, and she, she was so skinny when she came to us as well. So like I topped that bowl up a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
And it's heartbreaking, but you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, you had that piece of information, then you started to look into it. So tell us, like, why with Hazel were you so keen to feed that kind of food from the start?
That is a great question. She right, she's a tortie. And so she's has a bold personality, I think is what I would say, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's pretty fearless. And so I just offered her some, and she was like, yeah, give me more. Like, it was just really kind of natural for her. She was like, yes, thank you. And I think that also, when you have a cat who's a bit more receptive in that way, it is sort of a blessing. It helps make it a little bit easier. Um, because it can be a struggle sometimes to introduce new foods to cats, right? They're not known for um, embracing change very, very easily. But Hazel, right, she made it kind of easy. She was really a partner with me in this, of like, yes, I felt like she was teaching me as much as I was learning from groups and other people about, this is how you feed a cat, this is what you do. Because she would sort of show me, yeah, this is what I need. And so,
I love that. I love
she
that.
was really she taught me as much as anybody else did too.
Yes. I love that. They are our teachers if we pay attention. I love the fact that you were aware of that with her. I mean, with my boys, we've got instances at the moment where, baby Max, we're having issues with food. Like, I'll be honest, I'm completely transparent with people. I am pro raw. I'm a member of the Raw Feed and Veterinary Society as an affiliate. I am all for it completely. But the bottom line is, you've got to have your cats eating. There are
Right.
risks if
Yes.
they don't eat, right? So,
Yeah.
at the moment, we are having meals now and again where dry food, and I count out the 8 or 10 little pieces are put into wet, because my boy, well, Max more so, we're having issues with eating. So when you said there about, being guided by them, by Hazel, being in that journey together and like learning from her, I love that, because it's not just about doing what we think is the right thing, right? Like, you can't just make a decision and think, well, this is the way I'm going to do it regardless, because
Yes.
that's not how it works, right? You
Right.
must have found
Yeah.
that when you were working with her.
Yeah. Yeah. And even in the in the Facebook group, right, that I'm a part of, a lot of what people's challenges are is like, how do I introduce this food? Like, I get it, you guys are telling me I need to feed moisture rich food, but like, my cat doesn't want to eat it. What do I do? And it's really figuring out, there's reasons cats are that they're cautious about new foods, right? I mean, it's part of their survival. I'm just not going to eat any old thing because I could get sick. That wouldn't, I have to take care of myself. And so they eat what's familiar. So if you have a cat that's been eating dry food for 6 years, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's a dish of wet or raw food. It doesn't look the same. It doesn't smell the same. Nothing about it is the same. And your cat is like, you might be excited about this, but I don't know what this is.
Yeah. I'm going to go nowhere near it.
No, absolutely not. So there really is a really a careful process of exposing your cat to a new food, pairing it up with what they're familiar with, figuring out what aspect of food is really important to them. Like, for some cats, it's all about the texture. Like
Mm-hmm.
the texture between dry, wet, and raw can be really different. And so
Yeah.
trying to figure out, how do I give them familiar texture with this new food to help it, be what they might be willing to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Taste is really the last thing, quite honestly, because they have to be willing to actually put it in their mouth for taste to count. But texture and smell are really powerful motivators and things you can use to increase familiarity with foods, to sort of help say, no, no, look, this isn't scary. This is not going to hurt you. This isn't dangerous. It smells just like this other food you like. Let's give this a try. And that helping work with them and the pace of that individual cat. Some cats will be like, oh, sure, I'll try that new thing. And in 24 hours, they're eating something new. And other cats might need 6 months. We had somebody in the group who 9 years later, their cat finally ate wet food. They'd been trying off and on, right? I mean, that's sort of an extreme example, but years sometimes it can take, right? And most of the time, when those transitions aren't going well, it's because the person is rushing. They're just going too fast for what that cat can tolerate. And they're trying to say, nope, 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 this is too fast. I don't want to eat this. And it's hard because once you make that paradigm shift in your thinking about food, you're like so excited to offer them something new. Like, oh, yes, I get this now. I've been feeding this, and this is not okay. I need to do this. And your cat is like, no, I'm not on board this train with you. Like, so you have to really slow down and figure out your individual cat's pace and what they're willing to do without causing them too much stress, right? Like you said, a cat has to eat, and you don't want to stress them out, because then sometimes you can have inappropriate peeing or cystitis or other things like that, because they're so stressed about what's happening with the food. So baby steps and slow and matching the cat's pace, not the person's pace, can really help a lot.
Yeah, I totally, I'm on that train. Totally understand that. It took us 5, maybe 6 months for us to get Leo off wet and dry, which is what he came to us from the rescue with. And we are, when did we get him? February, March, April. So 14 months after having baby Max. And we are having instances where we've got to go back to dry, and you just said something there which is really giving me like a light bulb that's just turned on above my head, where you said, and I know this, like the joke of it is I know it, right? But you said that cats they need to have what's familiar. And you just made me think that when we as humans are stressed, because we know they feel our energy, our emotions, whole of the topic, but we know that they do.
Yeah.
It shows up in different ways, right? So you said there, if you're going too quickly, if the cat is stressed out, it can lead to inappropriate elimination around the home, right? Other issues, over grooming, etc.
Yeah.
And it's really made me realize that at the moment, my energy in the house, I won't go into reasons, is not settled. And Leo has shown up to that with being cautious. So he is a very cautious cat anyway. So like in the mornings, normally he'd come on the little stool, have his inhaler, I'd put his collar on, and we'd go out about the day. He comes on in the morning, he looks at me like I'm a gigantic bear, runs away. I'm like, buddy, like I know I may have like bed hair, but seriously, like it's just me. Like, are you okay? He's unsettled, right?
Yeah.
And from what you've just said, like for baby Max, who is one of the most joyful, laid back, easygoing cats, his unsettledness is showing up in his food. So when you said about it being familiar, he knows that dry food is familiar to him because he had it for the first 6 months. We didn't get him until he was 6.5 months old.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is something either biologic, like a gut biome, or, even like the cell memory, right? That is like, I need something comforting, something familiar. And I also really love the way you mentioned about, being aware of what they need, like their emotional health in this. Like we know like what the best thing to feed, for example, whether you don't know the brand, you don't know the actual product, but even if we're talking like wet, dry or raw, right? We've got an idea what to feed. And like you said, we can be so gung-ho and excited about it.
Yeah.
But what's, in my experience, and I'd love to get your take on this, because with the Facebook group, which I want to come on to in a minute, we've got to first assess, surely, like, where is the cat? You know, how are they doing? Where are they emotionally right now? Is it a good time to do it? Like, do you discuss that kind of thing in the group? Do you talk to people about looking at how the cat is doing, like, generally, and then starting to make changes? Do you bring that into it?
We do bring that in, right? It's a little bit hard because we go with what somebody's offering up in a post, and then sometimes you're kind of asking questions and trying to get other information. But we often bring up, it isn't just what you feed, but how you feed as well. Whether that's how often you're feeding, what kind of dish or plate you're using. If you have multiple cats, does everybody have enough space? Are you utilizing vertical space? Does your cat like a tilted bowl or raised bowl or flat mat? Like, really considering all of those. But then the other big piece really is the anxiety that sometimes we're bringing to the equation, because like you said, they're so sensitive. They're little tuning forks. And so if we're like, I'm so stressed, please eat this, and you're giving them a dish and then you're hovering over like, are you eating it? Right? Then the cat is like, oh, this obviously is not okay, because you're really freaking out right now. So I'm not going to eat this. Right. And we end up working against the process. It's almost like set it down, walk away, give them some space to smell it, interact with it on that level, because we can be our own worst enemies sometimes.
Yes. I mean, I think there is also, like you said, about the tuning fork, a great analogy. Our energy, our emotion, like, comes out of us, whether we see it or not. It's there, and like, I've got previous, and I'm going to say the word trauma, because to me it was, when Leo didn't eat 2 summers ago, for, I think it was 5 or 6 days, he ended up being in the vets for 2 nights. It was very worrying. So now I do have this kind of innate need where I'm like, I've got to make sure they eat. Have they eaten today? Why haven't they eaten? It's been hours, and the baby Max normally has 4 meals and he's only had 1. And why is that? And here, have dry food because you got to eat something, and you can just, even from my voice, like, you can hear how stressed I get, and that's not going to help.
Right.
So I love the fact that it's multi-dimensional, which sometimes I know can be a bit overwhelming for people, but I think also it does give us a great opportunity to just, like, pick one bit that you can look at. Is it yourself? How are you going into this? Then your cat, how are they doing right now? What's going on in their little world?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Hazel. Let's talk about her and what you feed. So I mentioned right with your academic intro, the qualifications that you've got. So tell us why did you train, from being like a cat mum who realized that raw is the way forward, to doing qualifications in feline nutrition? What was that for?
I'll think about that for a second.
All right.
I mean, I guess I would want to say, one, you don't have to get certifications in this to feed your cat properly, right? It's not a necessary thing. I think part of that is my own personality, right? Of wanting to, like, when I am passionate about something, I'm kind of like a deep dive. I want to know it all. And so that kind of made a lot of sense. That just sort of follows, I think, in terms of knowing myself, of, of course I did that because I wanted to know even more. And quite honestly, being part of the admin team of the group, I want to make sure I'm giving appropriate, solid suggestions and information, that I can sort of back up what I'm saying. And so, just in terms of credibility and things like that, right? Just from a practical standpoint. But part of it is just, that's kind of who I am, that I would want to take a deep dive and know all the bits and figure out how I want to use that information moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. And were there any, like, surprises? So, like, cats are carnivores. I love the fact that David shared a little about what he's been doing with Walker, who's recently transitioned from 13 years over to a raw diet, because Walker's got hypothyroid and early onset kidney disease. He said the transition took several months, but it's going well. He started with rehydrated, freeze dried, and now gets frozen raw, which is locally sourced. He says, I'm a vegan, so it's something of a challenge. And I totally agree with that. But we choose to have carnivores as pets, as companions. So, we have a duty of care to feed them a species appropriate diet. So totally understand the struggle there, David.
Yeah.
Were there any surprises when you did the qualifications? You know, we know that cats are carnivores, so therefore carbohydrates. Now, there's two schools of thought, because there are some people that say carbohydrates completely no, they're obligate carnivores, they don't need any. And then there's another school of thought, which is like they do need little, because they'd have carbohydrates from the tummy of the mice that they would eat in the wild. So don't feel like I'm putting you under pressure to answer specifically about carbs. And if you want to answer, feel free. It's more around, you know, when you did the qualification, were there any surprises when they talked to you about feline nutrition?
Yes, for sure. Yes. The short answer is yes. The little bit longer answer is, you know, I ended up doing 2 certifications because they're vastly different. I actually wrote a blog about it because the 2 certificates were so different in their approach. One was more kind of natural focused, right? This is how cats eat in nature, and this is how we're extrapolating this information. And it was a little bit more relaxed, I guess I would say, in that regard, which is sometimes a good thing, because sometimes I think we get really hung up on like every nutrient and this has to be perfect, and oh no, this isn't, you know, complete. And so a more relaxed approach can be really lovely sometimes, but it can't be so relaxed that you lose sight of, I need to make sure I'm offering some balanced food too. The other certification program was much more about the numbers and about the science. And there's something to be said for having baseline numbers to understand what needs to happen in a diet. We do it for ourselves. We know we need vitamin C. We know we need to eat protein and carbs and these things. But none of us are probably calculating exactly how much vitamin C we ate today either. I know I am not, right? But they still, even in that program, they still included more carbs than I think anybody who really understands that cats are obligate carnivores would ever include. There was still this idea that that you would include them. And I'm not in the camp of like, oh my gosh, don't ever feed a carb to your cat. Some cats don't need any. And so, okay, they don't need any. And some cats do benefit from anywhere from 1 to 5% of some appropriate kind of plant matter to help with fiber. Okay, either one is great, but you start feeding way more than that. This is where you run into problems, because they don't have a nutrient requirement for it, even though from a fiber standpoint, it could benefit them. Depending on the cat.
And also, like every cat is different, right? So like every human, so like say for example, we need I don't know if this is the right number at all. Say for example, humans need 100 grams or micrograms of vitamin C, 100 grams of protein. Let's use that as an easier example. You know, so like humans need 100 grams of protein. Well, that's going to vary, because if you've got an extreme athlete, they're going to probably need more. If you've got someone that's got a very sedentary life, do they need that much? You know, so like the same with cats. Their breed, their environment, you know, their temperament, and also like their constitution, you know,
like their individual metabolism. Yes.
For
sure. Some cats will just more naturally just carry more weight, right? And you really have to kind of pay attention to that. Hazel's really lean. I don't know if I could probably overfeed her. It feels like, I mean, I feed her portioned amounts, but she maintains a pretty lean body
physique?
Constitution, right? Yeah, she's just a lean little thing. She's petite, but it really, yes, it very much can depend on the cat. And I think that's also why you don't want to get too hung up on the numbers. Oh, well, I'm supposed to feed this, my cat needs this many calories or this many this. And it's like, okay, well, that's a guideline. And then that's your starting point. And then you're going to need to make adjustments on, oh, my cat seems to be gaining too much weight on this. Okay, I need to back this down. This guideline is too much for my cat, and vice versa. So we need guidelines, but we also need to make adjustments as needed too.
Yeah, you got to know your cat, haven't you? I mean, it's like with anything, whether we're talking energy, nutrition, behavior, environment, you know, you've got to get to know your cat. And even if you're trying something new, you know, start off small, you know, make small changes and see how they settle right within the body, within the outputs of the body, you know, and see how it impacts your individual cat.
Yeah.
One of the questions we had that was posted on one of the comments on social media was about mussels. So I've been sharing a couple of your plates. And again, if you don't follow Jen and Hazel, make sure you do. On Instagram, the Raw Fed Feline. Are you on Facebook as well, Raw Fed
Yes.
Feline?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, beautiful. Yeah. Great examples of plates, which I'm going to come on to in just a minute. So one of the questions, a lot of people in my community talk about freeze-dried mussels, and like, you know, Dr. Judy has a beautiful product, which I think is called the New Zealand something company. It's freeze-dried green lip mussels. We actually ordered them in, you know, I pay the ridiculous amount of postage to get them here because I haven't found a brand in the UK, and Baby Max absolutely adores them.
Loves them.
Yeah, very, very much so. And actually it's one of the, if it's the only thing that I can sprinkle onto food to get him to eat it before I go to dry. So, you know, a very, very good product for us. But somebody mentioned about fresh mussel, fresh
mussels. Yes.
There we go. Too many S's for me.
Yes.
And if it was safe to feed them to cats because of the potential kind of bacteria from the sea and things like that. So because I'm bringing up this question because there was one on Hazel's plate. So could you just speak to that for a second? Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure. So two things, right? So the ones that people are seeing on Hazel's plate are blue mussels, not green. The green lip mussels are really awesome for omegas and for joint health and inflammation. But the blue mussels that I include, they're a really good source of manganese. And so that's why blue and black mussels will do that. And so, yeah, so there's a big difference because the green lip mussels won't give you the manganese you want, and the blue ones won't give you the omegas you want with the others. So they definitely serve two different purposes in the diet. And the thing with green lip mussels, they're special. So they're always identified as green lip mussels. And so if you see something in a store that just says steamed mussels or mussels, those will be blue or black because the green ones are always labeled as such.
Fascinating. I'm learning something already. Brilliant.
Yes, there we go. But, you know, to the point of the question, the mussels you're seeing on Hazel's plate are cooked. They've been cooked. They are not raw.
Right.
For the reason they mentioned, seafood, shellfish in particular, can have some pretty nasty bacteria. And so the oysters that I will sometimes include on her plate are canned, so they've been cooked. The mussels, those have been steamed and those are cooked. It's just not worth the risk to me to feed those ones raw.
No.
So those are in fact cooked. They're not raw.
Beautiful. How do you cook them?
I am lazy and I don't cook them. I buy them already cooked and shucked, so I don't have to do that.
Make it easy on yourself. That's the way to do it.
Right. There's certain things that I will do, but you know, I think one of the people in the comments mentioned they're vegan. I am too, and I live in a plant-based household, and so I don't like to cook meat, like just the smell of it and everything, and it's upsetting to the people I live with. So on one hand, I'm like cutting up organs and meat in my house, but somehow doing that raw is easier than cooking it for me, just I think in terms of the smell. And so if there's something that I'm going to use cooked, which is basically shellfish or fish, I typically buy it already done for me. And I don't cook it in the house myself. It's just easier.
Yeah. And to be honest, like we need to be in an easy, you know, we need to make things easy for ourselves, right? We've already mentioned about our emotions, our energy, the cat's, you know, state of it's new, it's foreign contaminant, it's an intruder, it's going to kill me, I need to survive. Like all that stuff's already going on. Like let's make it easy on ourselves, people, if we're going to try and add things into diets, you know?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So totally agree. I love that I've learned something. I love it when I do it live and I make notes for the boys. Carrie Ann said, Jennifer, what do you recommend as a first step to move from kibble based to eventually making your own raw? That's a big spectrum there.
That is a very big spectrum. So
great question.
That is. So the very, very, very first step, if you're going to transition away from dry, is if you are free feeding it or from dry, if you're free feeding it, you're just filling up the bowl and you're leaving it. The very first step is to stop doing that and to get your cat used to eating set meals of their current dry food. You're not introducing anything new because the new thing you're introducing is no more 24/7 buffet. You're going to eat set meals now. So you would put that dry food down, leave it for 15 to 20 minutes. Your cat's going to eat what they're going to eat, and probably not as much because they are thinking it's going to be there. And then you would pick it up, and no more food until the next meal time. And usually then they're hungry because they didn't eat as much. Typically cats catch on to that pretty fast. Like, oh, wow, okay, this isn't here anymore. And it can often help to offer more meals than you'll eventually end up with, just because to minimize stress for them. You don't want them completely freaking out, but you don't want to offer so many that you're still kind of free feeding, right? So somewhere in that 3 to 5 meals range for adults is kind of a nice way to start. Once you've got everybody comfortable and set with those meals, then you start pairing up a new food a little bit at a time with their current food to help increase that familiarity. And you have to kind of find your cat's starting point. For some cats, it might be the other side of the room, like they don't want it near their dish. And so that's your starting point. So you're going to pop open that can if you're starting with canned, which is typically easier, as people often go from dry to wet to raw. Some people do go from dry to raw, but it tends to be a little bit easier to go to wet, because really, truly, the biggest hurdle is from dry to something else. Dry is so addictive, and it is just such a very different texture and everything that's the hardest hurdle. So sometimes you're popping open that can of food on the other side of the room. Your cat is smelling it. They can't not. They have amazing little senses. And so that's where they're starting. I'm eating my dry, but I'm smelling that strange new food across the room. And that's where you start. And maybe the next meal, you take one step closer. And maybe 2 days later, you're halfway across the room, and you're just literally baby stepping it, watching your cat. Is my cat still eating their food? Yes, they are. So this is okay. If you take a step too close and now they're like, I'm not eating my meal, you've gone too fast and you have to take a step back. So it really is a very careful, step by step. And some cats are fine if you put a tablespoon of that new food right next to their dry food, and they can start right there. They may or may not lick it or eat it. So it really is kind of finding where your cat's starting point, and then just moving very slowly, but consistently at that point.
Yeah. And I love that. And then Jen, if you're open to it, I'd love for you to come back and we could do a topic about transition, and share more with people, because I'm conscious that we're almost out of time. We were going to just do half an hour tonight, and we're already over. So we would love to have you back to talk more about transition. And like you said, knowing where you can start. And I think also there are a couple of things as a human to bear in mind with that as well, is that when you are transitioning, you are going to waste food. You've just got to get comfortable with that, because and I'm saying this from experience, like 3 times experience, you have to get comfortable. And you have to let go of the frustration that comes with that, because I've been in this situation, and I am still to this day trying to identify and let it go, because it's not their fault, right? I can see £1.50 going down the toilet, and it's like, well, I've got to let that go, because what's important is their emotional state and what is our end goal, so that's one thing. I think the second thing is when one of the co-founders of the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, Nick Thompson, holistic vet, said that if you're ever going to do anything with cats' food, i.e. transition them, you've got to pretend that you're a poisoner. And I never forget when he said it, and I was like, oh my God, you can't say that. And he was like, no, he said, but bear with me. He's like, just like you said, you have to be so slow and almost secretive about it, but still making those steps of progress. And you will get there eventually. There are some cats, I never forget a client, I had a call with her on the Tuesday. She told me that both her cats were fed dry food. We had a follow-up call on the Thursday, because I said to her, we need to figure out how you want to go forward. She's like, oh, we bought them raw, they're both eating it, we've not looked back, we've binned the bag of dry food. I'm like,
yeah, amazing. Yeah, sometimes that happens.
Oh,
right?
Great.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, sometimes it is easy, and sometimes it's not. To your point about wasting food, it is true, in a transition that is going to happen. But we also we talk a lot about in our group, you can portion tinned food, canned food, raw food. You can make little portions like on some wax paper on a cookie sheet and freeze it. And then you can, put it in a little bag and store it. And then each day you're just taking a little bit out, and then that food is going to last longer, right? Because once you've opened it, then you're on the clock. But if you portion it into little pieces that you can pull out as many as you need for the transition, it helps minimize waste.
Love it. I
Yeah.
would never have thought of that.
Yeah, it helps because it is hard. There is that very real frustration. Dry food is cheaper to feed. And it's cheaper for a reason, but if that's what you're used to paying, and then you're paying more and your cat's not eating it, that frustration for the pet parent can really build fast. And, anything I think we can do to relieve that stress, is helpful for everybody. For sure.
Most definitely. I didn't think about that. I can't do that with my raw because it comes, pre-packaged. We get pre-made. I'm not at your like dream standard of preparing it all myself yet. But great idea with wet food. So when baby Max is having those moments when he's on wet, I think I'm going to try that, open it up and freeze some of it. Because someone told me, I'll share this comment and then wrap us up. Was about dry food was to put it in the freezer. And I was like, they said, put the bag of dry food in the freezer, because what can happen is your cat can still smell it, whether it's on the kitchen side with a clip on, or it's a sealed top, or you've got it, God forbid, if you've decanted it into a jar, not a great idea. But basically, wherever you've got it in the house, in a cupboard, whatever, the cat can smell it. And I was like, no way.
Yes.
And they were like, yeah, absolutely. So our bag, God, I hate that I've even got a bag, but we are where we are.
Yeah.
His bag, the bag is in the bottom of the freezer, so that, and I have a little teeny Tupperware that's got a few that are in the fridge, so that, it's not out on the side for him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, another great tip, if you are feeding dry, like you said about for Carrie-Anne to, start going to timed feeding schedule, is to put any dry food you've got in the freezer.
It's true, because if they smell it, they can hold out for it. Right. And they'll win. In that scenario. They will just wait you out and you will get stressed, and then they will get it, and then they'll keep doing that. They're like, okay, well, I don't need to try this new thing. I'll just keep waiting. Because I know that good stuff is here somewhere.
I can smell the cake.
Exactly. Right. I smell the goodies. I don't want to eat this other stuff. I want the goodies.
I can smell chocolate cake. I'm not eating broccoli.
Right. Exactly. So true.
Oh, my love, this has been beautiful. Thank you ever so much. I'm going to wrap us up because I did say we do half an hour and we're 10 minutes over. So I apologize about that. But I really hope that you've enjoyed sharing a little with our community. Like I said, we'd love to have you back. And thank you to everyone that's been here with us about asking questions. Drop a comment and let us know if you'd like Jen to come back and to talk about specific foods or ways to feed or what to do. And don't forget, you can find in a Facebook group. So do you want to just share a little bit about how people can find you and your website and things, my love, before I wrap it up?
For sure. Both the website, my Facebook page, and Instagram are all the Raw Fed Feline. So if you just Google that, we'll all come up on there. And then the Facebook group that I'm just so fortunate to be part of the team of is called Feline Nutrition, Feed Cats Like Cats. And we are just super passionate group about helping people feed moisture-rich food, moving off of dry food. We support canned, cooked food, and raw food. We have a wide variety of feeders. It's an international community, so we have people from all over. We have a lot of information on different foods that we recommend and kind of what's required. And we also work really hard to be supportive because we know how hard it can be to help transition. So we really do want it to be a safe, supportive community too.
Excellent. So come and join us. So what I will do is I will ask Jen when we finish the live to just pop back into Facebook in Naturally Cats and drop the links there if that's okay. Yeah. And people are saying come back. Yes, so I think you need to have a think about whether you would like to join me again next month.
Yes, of course.
So thank you to everyone for being here. I hope you've enjoyed it. And thank you again to Jen. It's been a wonderful evening. And before I go, that reminds me, just to remind everybody, next week, we've got a jam-packed week next week. There's a roundtable on Monday at 7 p.m. UK time. We're talking about how to introduce new cats to the home. That's on the Two Crazy Cat Ladies page. On Wednesday, we've got the free Soul Circle class. So the link to join up is in my bio on Instagram. And on Thursday, we've got Energy Insights. So Pam and I are doing muscle testing and chakra sensing for 6 cats. Again, more information on my social media. And then on Friday, we are live on the Raw Pet Medics page at 1 o'clock UK time. And we are talking about obesity. So Amaya said she wanted to, because it was Easter, she wanted to talk about obesity. So keep an eye on social media, peeps. You'll see all the links and the reminders and things. And thank you again to Jen. It has been lovely to have you here.
Thank you. It has been an honor. This has been really fun.
Beautiful. Brilliant. Take care, everyone. We'll see you again. Bye for now.